Hey, welcome everyone. We're going to talk about World versus World, how to figure out where you're at on the server, as well as the basics you're going to need to get into World versus World if you're considering pursuing the new legendary trinkets that they have said that are going to be releasing here in the near future for that. So let's go ahead and find out what server we're on. So we've got the servers all listed here. The populations is going to dictate whether you are able to join that server or not. Medium populations means you're going to have less allies generally. Most of these servers are all linked now, so they're also paired with bigger servers. Where high is, you're going to have some more. Very high means they're getting close to full, and full means you're not going to be able to join these servers at all. You're going to be able to see your friends that are online, what servers they are on, if they're on different servers than you. And then the little home icon is going to tell you what server you are part of when you port into World versus World. So I am on Yak's Bend, and we're going to go ahead and hop in here on my Guardian. And now that we're here in World versus World, I want to take a little bit of time and go over the maps. I'm going to just kind of quickly throw this out here. Not really too many people are going to be using Edge of the Mist. It is a option that you can use if you're on a highly populated server to start building some World versus World experience, but you are not going to be able to count that towards your team's war score. In addition, it's also not going to count towards one of the reward types, which most of us will refer to as the World versus World pip system. So in this, there are different things that will impact the progress of how many pips you get per countdown timer up here. So it's 5 minutes for each countdown, and then whoever the leading server is for the amount of points that are being calculated will receive 5 points. The person in second place will get 4 points, and the server in third place will get 3 points. You also get it additionally for if you completed the wood chest the week before. You get it for having a commander tag with at least 5 people, and you also get it an additional 3 pips if you are a commander tag with at least 10 people that is visible on the map. You can hide your commander tag in World versus World and run a private squad. Additionally, you are able to get additional pips. You're not going to start out with any until level 150, and then you're going to get one additional pip until 619, and then just so on and so on through all of these until you get up to rank 10,000, which will give you 7 additionals again. So that would then impact your pips for your participation. And that's another thing to mention is to get these pips, you have to have at least a tier 3 participation, and you will build your participation up through going around and capturing objectives. So taking sentries, flipping camps, flipping keeps, killing players, all of that's going to increase your participation level. And then each specific thing that you do will add an additional duration to this. You can get a maximum of 10 minutes, and that would be for capturing any objective that is a camp level or higher. So camps, towers, keeps, and castles all give you 10 minutes. Killing a player will give you 10 minutes. And then more minor objective things will grant you 2 minutes. So like killing a yak, flipping a sentry. You don't get any additional participation from flipping a ruin, so that doesn't give you anything but most of the other events here in World versus World will give you at least 2 minutes participation. You can also get, I believe, 5 minutes from killing the veteran creatures, either the harpy, which will generally run its route down in here, and then the veteran warg will run his route down in here, as well as the ice worm, which is going to be here. All right, everyone. So these are the 4 maps that are not part of Edge of the Mist. You're also able to, in addition to progressing your World versus World rank experience, you are able to add to the participation level, which is going to allow you to build out your reward track and your pips, which will allow you to build the World versus World skirmish tickets and the memories of battle. Additionally, on these maps, you will see that there are 3 maps here in addition to the Battlegrounds map. Each server has their own map. The blue team and the green team will always be on an Alpine Borderlands map, while the red team will always be on a Desert Borderlands map. The Borderlands map, the Alpine Borderlands maps are easier for newer players. There's less places to get confused with, like how to get one direction or another. There's a lot of different levels to the Desert Borderland map, so they're a little more difficult to navigate. It's a little bit larger of a map. And gliding is definitely important on this map if you don't know it, because there are some places like hay bales where you can like jump down onto them without taking damage, but you have to specifically know where those are at. And most people generally don't use them anymore because gliding's been a World versus World for a while now. And then each map has the same types of objectives. You have a north camp, a south camp, northwest camp, southwest camp, northeast camp, and southeast camp, as well as towers that also correspond with those, and it's the same on all of the maps with the exception of EBG, Eternal Battlegrounds, where you have Stone Mist Castle, which is an additional objective in between all of the servers' respective territories. So let's talk about the objectives here. So we have the Sentry, which is a object that will mark players on the map for the team of the color that the flag is representing. So this one would mark me for the green team and let them know my position for about 15 seconds. Camps are for supplies, so being able to build siege, repair walls. The axe will transport supply from the camps to the objectives when you hold objectives that are adjoining that camp. So this camp here will feed both Red Lake and Hills, and then the supplies will be able to build up here. In addition to, as you can see, this Hills has 2 shields on top of it, which means this is a tier 2 reinforced keep, and that will allow them to add additional fortification buffs to the keep to make it tougher to take. In addition to, it will boost the guards that are guarding this keep and make them tougher to kill. So you will see the same thing for a camp. Let's see if any of the camps are tiered up. So this is a tier 1 camp here. So it's going to be a little bit harder to take than a just paper camp like our home camp currently is. Let's go ahead and start going towards the camp here, which has a buff on it, which will keep me from capturing it for another 35 seconds. The other thing that's also important is the Lord there, which is what you need to kill to capture any of these objective types. The Lords are going to be of varying difficulty. It is going to be invulnerable to damage, and also deals a lot more damage. Alright, so here we have a camp objective. You can see there's multiple guards here, so it's going to be more difficult to take than a sentry. So what we're going to do is we're going to, since we're trying to solo this, stack the guards up over here. Where we can kill all of them in the same line of sight. As you can see, the ring came up here, so what you have to do to capture the point then is stand inside the ring, and there can't be any enemies, and this will be the same for each objective type. So we'll just go over this once. So you stand inside the ring, you cannot be mounted to count towards the ring capture, and then there are certain skills like the Guardian's Elite skill, which will prevent your participation in the capture. And then once the bar hits full, the objective will flip, and then you are able to claim the objective. Let me go ahead and put one of my PvE guilds on here that has some buffs. That way I'm not moving any objectives from my World vs. World guild, because we're generally holding a keep with that. And what this is going to do is increase the supply that the allies can take from this. Generally, when you start in World vs. World, you're only going to be able to carry 10 supply. You will then be able to carry 5 more supply, so if you're just a starting World vs. World player, you'll be able to carry 15 supply from this camp. And then in addition to that, you will be able to carry additional supply as you level up your supply capacity mastery for World vs. World. And it takes you 145 levels of World vs. World to complete that mastery. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about the ways that you can level up faster in World vs. World. So we'll take a look at all of the boosters, and the hero banners will give you more experience, as well as the spirit banners. So each time as you see them, as you're running past in World vs. World, go ahead and grab those. You will also get more experience if you are on a map that has the outnumbered buff. The new food, the Ascended food, will also give you additional World vs. World experience. The birthday celebration boosters will give you additional World vs. World experience. If you were lucky enough to pick up the Snowflake Gobbler during the Winter's Day event, then you can also get an additional buff here, which will give you experience in World vs. World. And then there is the World vs. World infusion for your amulets, which you can purchase from the Laurel Merchant. You are also able to use fireworks if you'll get the benefit if you use them outside of World vs. World and then come into World vs. World with them, but you cannot use them inside once you're inside World vs. World. So stack them up. You can stack them up to 2 hours, stack them up before you come into World vs. World, and enjoy the extra experience. You can also use the experience boosters as well to level up faster. Alright, one last thing I want to talk to you about before we start wandering out onto the map here is the World vs. World masteries and which ones are generally going to be most important. So the first one that you're going to want to grab is the gliding mastery, hands down. And one thing for that gliding mastery to also keep in mind is you are only going to be able to glide in territories which you own. So if I were to go up here to this keep and try to jump down off of the cliff here, I'm just going to plummet to my death. Because I don't own this territory, so my gliding skill is not going to activate. So gliding is a really important one to get early on. And then the other ones are going to really matter on what game style you're going to be playing. If you're going to be playing a lot by yourself, then you're probably going to want to be looking at the ones that are going to be relevant for killing guards. So defense against guards is going to be another important one, as well as guard killer is going to be good. Mercenaries Bane's just for the different factions on the map, like the Hylix or the Centaurs or the Scrits that you can send to attack camps if you go through and complete the event. There's not really a ton of people still doing these outside of EVG, so you're not generally going to use this too much anymore. So I would say focus specifically on the guard ones, and then if you're going to be taking towers, then either, depending on what type of siege you're running into, I would probably start with catapult mastery. You get a little more flexibility out of what you can attack with a catapult, and you can usually attack from a far enough range that defensive siege at a tower is a little less painful for you, whereas with a ram you have to be up on top of the gate, and it's just a lot easier for them to defend with some arrow carts. Alright, so finally let's go ahead and talk about siege. So there are 3 types of siege that I would consider specifically mainly offensive only. You're going to see the golems, the battering rams, and the catapults used mainly as offensive siege. You will sometimes, though, see the catapults used behind doors, so somebody might specifically line a catapult up at a entrance like this gate here, so that they can knock people off of battering rams on the other side. But for the most part, those 3 pieces of siege will be offensive. The golems are the only type that will move. The omega golems are ranged, versus the alpha golems are melee. You also do have, I should note that there are guild versions of each of these types of siege, which do increase damage over the regular blue blueprints, versus the purple superior ones, which take more supply. So the other ones you'll see is the trebuchet, which has the longest range. It is more than twice the range of a catapult. It takes 120 supply. And then there is the arrow cart, which is shorter than the ballista as far as defensive siege. And you'll see the ballista has 3,000 range, and this is going to shoot bolts. It's more of an anti-siege weapon type thing. You can use it to take out catapults if they build them in close enough to the objective you are defending, or take out golems. And then arrow carts more specifically will help you take down siege, but it's more specific to trying to put a lot of pressure on the players that are using the siege and make them fall back that way. For watching, everyone. This concludes the intro to World vs. World. I am going to have some further videos about how to gear your characters depending on what type of World vs. World playstyle you want to have, and then some of the ways that I go about getting that gear so that you can spread out the way you're using your resources and get the most benefit from your resources as you're gearing up to play in World vs. World. Hope you're all having a great one, and we'll catch you next time.